Hi, my name is Jason Hadley, and today I'm going to be giving a presentation on Dadaism and the Dada art movement. One artist and piece that I'm going to be focusing on specifically is The Art Critic, which was painted in 1919 by Raoul Hassmann. So just some background on Dadaism. Dadaism was an art form that emerged as a result of World War I. It lasted from around 1916 to 1922. Dada art was in drastic contrast to the societally accepted definition of art. And unlike other art forms, there was only one rule for Dada art, and that was that you don't follow any rules. And in fact, they would suggest that you do the exact opposite of what the rules would suggest. So it was sort of a rebellious art movement. Some leading Dada artists that contributed to this movement would be Marshall Duchamp, Jean Arc, Max Ernst, Raoul Hassmann, and Francis Pabica. So this is The Art Critic by Raoul Hassmann, and I've just highlighted some key defining characteristics in this piece that will sort of bring into context the themes and mission of the Dada art movement. So the first thing that you can see is that overall it's not particularly pleasing to look at. It sort of looks dirty. It's not very aesthetically pleasing, not something that you would necessarily hang up in your house. But you can see here I have circled the mouth and the eyes, and you can see that they've been cut out and replaced with these paper inserts, and these would be considered mild obscenities, which are sort of a defining characteristic of Dada art. It's sort of disturbing to think of eyes and mouths being cut out and replaced. And another thing that Dada art has is the featuring of everyday items such as this pen, the shoe on his forehead, the card, paper airplane. And also they use the oversizing of objects and disproportion of objects. So this pen is very oversized for the size of this body, and also the head is much larger than the body. So this is a very good example of how this art movement does not follow the typically defined definition of aesthetically pleasing art. So you can see that the purpose of this art is not to evoke positive feelings or create a pleasant aesthetic. It is to convey a message. Like I said, this emerged shortly after World War I, and it was tied to the political and societal implications of World War I. So these artists would refer to their movement as a non-movement, and this is because the war and the great loss of human life that occurred caused people to really think abstractly and start to question the institutions and values of society. And the establishment of government was very resented because from both sides of the war, simple people who were involved in it saw it as a result of incompetent leadership and a failing of society to support its people. And they thought that culture and values that were so centered to the causes of World War I, these ideologies, opposing ideologies that threw normal everyday people in the middle, were to blame for World War I. And so then these artists came to the conclusion that society and culture are meaningless, and art is also meaningless if we are not connected to our humanity. So there is examples of Dadaism in music, not as common as visual arts, but certainly it does exist. And one piece that stuck out to me was Antonio Russo's Serenata. It's the same sort of way of obscuring the boundaries of art that the visual arts, such as The Art Critic by Raoul Hassmann. It's non-aesthetic, it's really unpleasant to listen to, and you can see that it shares a nonsensical theme with The Art Critic because there's no purpose to it other than to make you uncomfortable, and that is particularly the opposite of what music normally does for people, is invoke happy feelings. It's a pleasant way to add to social gatherings, and this is certainly not a piece that you would play at those gatherings. And then my example of Dadaism in literature was the Dada Manifesto by Tristan Tzara. It's had the same obscene way of obscuring the lines of art, and this laid out the purpose and the mission of the Dada art movement. So he kind of took it upon himself to be the voice for Dada artists, and he has an obscene way of addressing the theme. So it's not just a laying out of these are our principles, this is what we stand for, and this is the mission of our movement. It was done in a sort of grotesque, poetic sort of way, in which he talked about minds strewn with the flowers of corpses and fertile spasms. He also had this nonsensical component of it, talking about salad and cheese, when he's talking about very serious implications of rebelling against society, and they do this through their artwork, and it's particularly interesting because it sees how our art and culture is influenced by the political and social climate of the times, and that can be applied to today, and throughout history you can see culture having an impact on art. So these are my references, and before I close up the presentation, I just want to add that after doing all this research on Dadaism, I came to the conclusion that art is more about conveying a message to people, evoking emotional responses, whether that be positive or negative, and that art is a way in which we express ourselves, and this can express political discontent, societal discontent, or just simply convey a happy message. But certainly, although Dadaism was a short-lived movement, it had a profound and lasting impact on art before and after it occurred. And yeah, so thank you so much for watching my presentation, and that's it.